No one has ever needed anything I've ever made. With that in mind, there's real freedom to that. But for the people that it's meaningful to, it should be ticklish and, as yummy and great as it can be. If you're going to do something that no one needs, you better bring it. Creativity was super important to my family. Among the things I learned how to do was to sew and work with fabric and make fashion, but alongside it we were, putting wiring in the garage and going to the hardware store, tending to the garden. And I think that's what made my fashion work a little different, I guess, because it wasn't informed from like Vogue's lying around on the table. It was from the Sears catalog. Well, New York's always amazing, and everybody's going to think their moment of arrival is really significant. When I arrived in the late 80s and through the 90s in New York, it was really a very special time. Creativity counted the most, ingenuity counted the most. It was just a lot of magic being made. We had the pleasure of working with very many amazing girls like Christy Turlington. Over time, we amassed a gigantic pile of these Polaroids of extremely gorgeous women wearing your clothes in an ugly background over and over and over again. And now they're yours. So we just kind of made shows that were for our friends and for ourselves, and then people were super happy to join us. André Leon Talley is such an epic figure, both mythical and then truly gigantic, because he was so physically gigantic. I don't know how tall he was, but was he like 6'6" or something? But he had such an innate, natural kindness and desire for others to succeed. And he would come and be backstage with us or help us during with castings for a few shows, just to be generous. We could have never afforded to hire André to do this, so the fact that he would offer his kindness for free was really something. There's Rashamba. I love this girl. Do you remember Rashamba? She was the best. Being a person of color in World of Fashion at that time, it was a challenge. And it was very natural for us to cast people of all kinds of color. But we would hear a lot of comments from magazines, things about not casting people of color because we can't put them in the pages. And you would hear that early on. And André, I remember him stomping about that. And we never changed anything, and it ultimately stopped being any issue. But you did hear it. It was amazing to me to think about the magnitude of his contribution, considering the brackets that someone tried to force him in one way or the other, which you couldn't do. He was a very unique man. I always liked bathrobes, and I would make them from time to time for pals in the industry around Christmas time. We were good at oversized clothing, but none of that came even close to André's stature. He was a proportionate man, but just a very big version of it. So he could wear things very gracefully and easily. Patchworking is a complicated situation because you're attaching all these different fabrics that don't go together, and most of the time it's just sew serge, but we were kind of maniacs for quality, so every one of the patchworks is French seamed, which is truly crazy. It's beautifully made. You couldn't get enough colors or fabrics. We're talking about yards of fabric from tip to toe. It's just the muchness. André was much, and that's gorgeous. This is a beautiful Harlequin print, which I'd always lived. I made it out of cutting up pieces of construction paper and reconstructing it. It's a pretty straightforward design, so there wasn't any extreme specialty applied in the making, but the textiles were really interesting. Most of it is custom textiles we had made all over the world. These patterns were taken from Egyptian tomb paintings. This is hand-dyed. Oh, this is crazy. This is a pattern that I got from an envelope that was hand-printed in India. I carried it around for about 20 years before I decided to do something with it. Oh, this was my stamp collection when I was 12. We were really good at seeking out industries that were languishing. And some of the pieces we had made in England at this tie manufacturer, they had then settled on only making the ties for private schools. They would create these blankets that had maybe 15 patterns in stripes that were constructed within 1 yard. This is the English tie manufacturer again. This was some school's tie. You were supposed to pick the one thing, but I picked the whole thing. The fire prints in there. Yeah, this was the backdrop to one of my shows, and we did a lot of clothing in it too. It's a sublimation print. Sublimation printing can only be done on synthetics, but what it creates is a near photographic reproduction with no surface texture. So that was really exciting. I was like, where can we do this? The way it was done, it was wood chips were set on fire in a tuna can and photographed, and then it was blown up and printed in this sublimation manner. It became a big print for us. I was playing in an arena with a lot of people that had a lot of bucks and a lot of options, and I didn't have a lot of bucks. So I went into places that they weren't. My options were bigger and better. We had such a pleasure getting to work with all these different artists through the years, making things for us. It's really an honor. I was always excited when they said yes. And they always did, so it was nice. It's hard to prioritize fashion in the way that it was back then. It just doesn't fit in the world in the same ways. And it's a great pleasure to see the pieces in the Met. I'm very honored that the Met has so much of my archive. And you know, it's so sweet too that André would keep these things. I mean, that's really nice that he took care of it. You know, I'm thinking, do you have the belt? No. Oh. Do you want me to make you one?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, I'll make you one.
Yes, please.
I still have some of these things, so.